I'm Bilal Musharraf and grew up in Pakistan. Of course, I've lived all over Pakistan. Father was in the forces. So finished high school in Pakistan, went to Cadet College Hasan Abdal. That's where I did my intermediate from. But I went to 6 or 7 different schools by the time I finished high school. Post-intermediate, I went for my undergraduate to the US. Went to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and did a bachelor's degree in actuarial science because I was interested in math. And if you know anything about the profession, it's about using statistics in the financial sector to quantify liability. Because liability, as opposed to assets, you normally have a challenge where both the frequency and the amplitude of cash flows are uncertain. So you have to use statistics as a tool to come up with a guess. Because my heart and mind was always in emerging countries, I wanted to see how to be more relevant for such an economy, such a country. And I realized that where assets are not being managed well, being in sort of liability assessment is kind of on the fringes of what the work that needs to happen. So I switched kind of directions and went on the asset management side and worked there before I went on to business school. I went to Stanford, and while I was at Stanford, so I was really drawn to venture capital then because I felt like I was where fundamental economic value gets created is when new entrepreneurs are provided the financing to create new businesses and create employment. So at least that's been America's story. So I went to Stanford for that reason, for the business school, but then I found out that Stanford also had a dual degree program. So if you were doing business, you could also do a degree in law or public policy or education. So I ended up doing a degree in education as well because I was interested in how venture capital started going in the United States. And that has to do with how applied research in academic institutions gets commercialized. But then post venture capital, I joined Khan Academy's founding team. Sal, aka Salman, who has no relationship with anyone in Hollywood or in cricket, born and raised in the US, but really a remarkable individual. Was top of his class in high school, went to MIT, did multiple degrees, and did his business degree from Harvard. Ended up creating videos to teach his cousin math. That's how it started, and then by 2010 when I joined, we received funding from Google and Mr. Bill Gates to start an organization. So I was the second guy Sal hired to internationalize what was an English portal. So my role was to make it available in other languages for other geographies, and our first kind of foray was into Latin America. We made a Portuguese portal and Spanish portal. Of course, in my heart, it was always we needed, the right to left languages like Arabic and Urdu and Farsi. But that required changing the portal to being a right to left portal, and there wasn't enough resources at that point to do that. But we worked with organizations to translate a lot of the videos into Urdu, and there are about 2,000 plus videos in Urdu. But it's a matter of, I hope at some stage either the Ministry of Education or somebody takes it on to translate the entire portal into Urdu. That would be a huge benefit to the country. So I was there for a while. I was there for 4 years. Now I'm back in the financial sector and looking at where there's an arbitrage, and I'm here in Pakistan looking at what is happening with the new economic corridor and what ancillary sectors will develop as a result of the economic corridor, and looking at education. I maintain my connection in education, although I've left Khan Academy, but I'm on the board of a non-profit called Learning Equality. Khan Academy evolved out of math, but then took on other sciences, other pure sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, and then computer programming. Then a stage came where there was so much traffic coming onto the website that other well-established, well-respected content creators like British Museum, NASA, California Academy of Sciences, and many others felt that they weren't attracting enough traffic on their portal, so it would be wise for them to, because that's the advantage of being a non-profit organization, which Khan Academy is and will always be, is that you're not charging for access to the content. So these organizations that are similarly not-for-profit oriented felt quite comfortable entering into cross licensing agreements with Khan Academy and saying, we'll also feature our content on your website. So in business terms, that's demand side increasing returns started happening, where the more content Khan Academy had, the more content it started getting from other institutions. So now it has a ton of content. It's not just STEM, it's STEAM. It's the A is there with art, humanities and the arts. Where this is going is we are living in an incredible world where technology is rapidly changing the world for the better, for the worse as well. And we have to figure out how to leverage these resources that are available to overcome some of the dire gaps that we have when we're thinking about our ecosystem. We don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough schools. So how do we overcome this gap? We can. We are actually living in times where it is very possible right now, today, to mobilize, to invest in people instead of buildings, and invest in technology, so that the knowledge provider, equipped with the means to leverage even bigger content, can be mobilized and find the knowledge consumer, and that will cause a quantum leap in our ecosystem. So I think two things that would really, again, mobilize the knowledge providers and help them engage the knowledge consumers are two things. One is we really need a universal standard for aptitude assessment. We currently don't have one. So whether children are going through a formal education system or they are not, they're out on the street, they should be going through the same exit point. And in my opinion, it should be an exam that tests four things. It needs to test reading comprehension, writing, math, and logical inference. You should understand that based on the data or information you're given and the underlying assumptions, what conclusions can you draw? And if the assumptions change or the information changes, how does your conclusion change? If you understand that, you can learn anything. So that aptitude test, we need a uniform aptitude test, which should be the entry-level aptitude test for higher education or vocational training. Once we have that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for knowledge consumers. They will consume knowledge, and they know they can. That exit point will get them into, like I said, vocational training or higher education. And the other thing is, we need to, in order to mobilize knowledge providers, again, defer investment away from brick and mortar kind of things to investing in people and technology. What we need is to finance micro education. So the same thing that happened in microfinance, where banks felt like loans can only be given if you have large chunks of capital, and Mr. Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh established that no, you can, if you break it down into smaller buckets, not only is the default rates lower, you have higher returns as well. So once you have that certificate, that should be a bankable asset. You should be able to go to a micro lending institution and show that you've got good, decent grades in high school, you know how to conduct a blended learning environment. Can I get a loan for $2,000? And with $2,000 to $5,000, with which you can get a laptop, You can get tablets. Tablets are right now, Chinese tablets are whatever, $50 a piece, and a broadband internet connection. And you are the school then. You have all the resources you need to go into any community and set up shop, maybe charge an hourly tuition, and and this we saw at Khan Academy. So let me mention that at Khan Academy we conducted several pilot projects where we found that when you create that kind of no boundaries, personalized, self-paced, those were the ingredients we were pushing on. Self-paced, it shouldn't matter how long a child takes to understand content. What is important is mastery of the content. They must understand it completely before they move on. So once you create that kind of an environment, what happens is you see kids jumping grade levels within months, because there's the excitement that comes from knowledge, which I think we discount, is a motivation in itself. So I think we need those two things. We need to decouple learning from assessment. We need a pure assessment out there that is professionally run, and we need to then provide the financial support for people, for knowledge providers to go out there and find the knowledge. Yeah, I mean the traditional education system is really falling apart globally. And we've continued to pile on more and more siloed. And the way we even teach is it's siloed education. That when you're talking about physics, you can't talk about math. I mean, when you bleed over into another topic is completely arbitrary. So we have to create, and what eventually leads to an empowered mind, a well-groomed mind, a nurtured mind that doesn't have gaps in comprehension is a non-siloed way of learning and teaching. So it's going to trump the current education system. I'm a little old school that way. I feel like, I mean, although I use social networks, but I think I have the luxury to be old enough to remember what life was like without them. So I feel like it's leading to shorter attention spans, and I think it's a challenge for this next generation to also discover life without them. Always Pakistan Zindabad.